I think we have to dig deep sometimes to go. Fear is like, I think, a pretty, I don't want to say it's like a singular emotion, but it kind of is in the sense that like you faced a fear at some point in your life. Maybe the scale, the magnitude of it could vary, but you faced a fear. And if you can look back and dig deep in those moments where you overcame that, I think it can give you the courage to tackle the next fear, to tackle that next thing.
Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. Be sure to click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notified when the next video comes out. It only takes 2 seconds to make 2 clicks. So let's do it. Let's get back to the video. Hello. This is Dr. G, and we are back for another episode of Fearless Freedom with Dr. G. And this week we have all the way from Sydney, Australia, which is actually on the same side of the world as I am, which I'm super excited about. We have Nicole Baldinu, and she is going to tell you all about herself and what she is up to. She's up to a lot.
Oh, awesome. I love your enthusiasm, Charmaine. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be talking to you today.
We definitely want to, let's hear your story, Nicole. Definitely.
Oh, yeah, sure. So my name's Nicole Baldinu. I was a high school teacher before I turned to full-time entrepreneurship. And I've been in business now. I gave that up after 12 years. And I've been in business with my husband and my co-founder as well for 10 years now. And we run a top business podcast called the $100 MBA Show. And we also run a webinar platform, a software company called WebinarNinja, with 20, I believe now, teammates distributed around the world.
Nice. Oh man, there's so much that we could talk about there. So let's start with, how is it that you transitioned from teaching young minds to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I was thinking some might wonder, like, what do those businesses have in common? How do they relate to teaching? Why did I leave? So I'll try and keep this as concise as possible. I suppose to answer your question about transitioning, I wanted to leave teaching because I didn't feel like I felt like myself as a teacher. I didn't feel like the profession allowed me to be really creative. I felt there was a lot of restrictions, and you can imagine, obviously, with a timetable, that's, such a restriction on your time, the calendar, and all of that. And I guess I was looking for something that was just more fun, more freeing, and more creative. And so that led me to finally decide, after 12 years, to leave teaching. And I went to film school, of all things, to begin that journey. So that's how, that's where I kind of made that leap, that transition. And I left. I was teaching in Dubai at the time. So teaching kind of took me all over the world, which was really exciting. Like I left, I left Sydney, went to teach in Japan for a couple of years, went to Dubai for 6 years. So it kind of took me all over the world. So in some ways, that was great. That was a lot of fun. But I just wanted something different. And so I left that and gave it all up.
So tell us about film school. So, when people say, okay, I'm going to make a change in career, they usually don't go from teaching and traveling all over the place, educating young minds, to film school. So how did that happen? Like, what was the situation there?
I guess I saw it as the complete opposite to teaching. Like I thought, film is so creative, it's storytelling. We've got this idea of like what film is from obviously being viewers, right? From being on the other side on the couch and whatever on, in a movie theater. And so I just saw it as the complete opposite of what I was doing. And I really only wanted to test it out. Like before I took that leap, I did a weekend film course. While I was still teaching, I just took it on the weekend because I did, not want to just throw in the towel completely and do something that I really had no experience in. Like, I didn't even know how to use a camera. I didn't even know like really anything about filmmaking at all. But I was curious. And so I did this 2-day film course. And I really loved it. Like, I just saw this world of possibilities. And so then when I put in my resignation, I had 6 months to save up. And then I ended up saving up enough to go and study a short course in New York. So to New York Film Academy, because I didn't want to come back home. And film school was interesting in the sense that I was in my mid-30s at the time, and you've got a lot of young kids there who are just in their early 20s. They've come from all over the world, right? Either right out of high school, just really still young. Yeah. A lot of international students. So I kind of felt like, oh gosh, I'm like the oldest one in the class here. And I was right up front because I was like, I've got to take notes. I got to learn this thing. I've paid a lot of money to be here.
That's right.
I didn't want to waste my opportunity, right? And so I was really a fish out of water, but I had a lot of fun because I really took myself out of the environment of being in the teaching world to a completely different space. And in that environment, I saw so much more possibility.
Wow. And, as you're talking, I can hear how you're facing fear with that because, okay, I'm sure that at the very first instance when you might have had fear, and maybe you might not have, I don't know, but leaving home to go and teach abroad. So you go to Japan, and Japan, English is not the primary language in Japan. Everything is quite different from it is in Sydney. So that was a transition, like a big one. So there must have been fear involved in that. And then you go to Dubai, which also, yes, they do speak English, but, Arabic is pretty much predominant, right? And the culture is different and everything's different. And, you're here and you're making a difference there, but there had to be some fear, even transitioning from what you had become accustomed to in Japan to this new environment in Dubai. And then you take it a step further and you basically decide to go on a completely different avenue and you go all the way to New York, right? Again, very different culture, et cetera, from Sydney and Dubai and Japan. And you are a quote unquote non-traditional student, right? Because you say that majority of the students are going to be right out of high school, early 20s, et cetera, et cetera. So there had to be so much fear that played a role here, but you somehow managed to look beyond that, step beyond that, push yourself outside of comfort zones. Can you explain, or do you have an idea of how is it that you're able to do that?
I think you made it just by recapping all of those transitions. You've made me realize that a lot of it had to do with, I think what I always did was I looked back on a moment when I had done something difficult or challenging and gotten through it, had a good result. When I put myself out there, of course, there's lots of times I've put myself out there all the way from high school, university days, and things didn't work out. I might have gone for something, raised my hand, and it didn't work out. But then there were those moments when I did raise my hand, I did do something, I did kind of step outside of my comfort zone, and it worked out. And I think I probably drew a lot of that, that hesitation from those experiences. So when it came to that first move to Japan was really transformative because, like you said, it's a different culture. At that time, everything's different. The way you eat is different. I hadn't used chopsticks before.
The way you hand people things is different. Both hands,
right?
Like all of these things.
I was talking to a friend the other day. It's like, the handshake. It's so important to give a firm handshake. Not in all cultures, not in all cultures, right? So you're rethinking everything that you had to do. So that experience really transformed and I learned a lot. I was only in my early 20s then. And so when it came to moving again the second time, like you said, to another very different culture, very different country, I drew on that first experience. I drew on that first experience when I had done it before. And I think we all have those experiences. I think we have to dig deep sometimes to go. Fear is like, I think, a pretty, I don't want to say it's like a singular emotion, but it kind of is in the sense that like you faced a fear at some point in your life. Maybe the scale, the magnitude of it could vary, but you faced a fear. And if you can look back and dig deep in those moments where you overcame that, I think it can give you the courage to tackle the next fear, to tackle that next thing.
No, that's great. Because I think that is the thing that like stops people most times, right? Because you have done some things that most people have never even considered doing, right? You left your home, you went to a place where the language is not your native language, the culture is different. Then you went to another place like that, and then a third place like that. Like, people tend to stay in their own spaces, right? Because it's comfortable. Yeah. And so, it's always interesting to hear, what is the driver? Like, what is the impetus that makes you do that makes you get out of that comfort zone? Because as you said, and as you have shown, every time that you did that, your life became so much more enriched by the experience. I'm sure you're like, I'm sure your Japanese is better than most, right? No, not really. But
it's at least very rusty.
But at least you are aware of it, right? You have some basis for it. And you also have some context for, things that are cultural to Japan, right? Which you would not have had, like watching television or like talking to somebody from Japan. It's very different when you're in situ versus like, looking at the experience from the outside and wishing you were there, right? So, yeah. You've actually like taken it that next step, faced that fear, and just like did it. And, and you came out on the other side, like you've grown as a result of that. And so, that's why I was kind of asking you, what is it that you did? And so it's fascinating that you said that what you did was you saw that there were instances in your life when you faced fear and you stood up, you raised your hand, you answered that question. Perhaps that wasn't the correct answer, and you might have felt defeated from that response, but that didn't stop you from doing it again. And then drawing on the positive instances, right? And then understanding that it is like a scale thing, like you mentioned, the magnitude of it, like the magnitude of the success that comes after you face your fear. It can be a small win, like getting the answer correct, or it could be a big win, like completely transforming your life by a certain path that you've taken as a result of facing your fear. So thank you for sharing that, because I think people want to know, like, what is the magic sauce? Like, what is it that allows you to differentiate yourself from somebody else by facing your fear and just really living your life? Because it's so funny, because I was talking to somebody the other day, and, the person was just saying that they were pretty much an introvert in high school, in their early 20s, they were very, very timid. But one day they just started saying yes to things. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they did that, they didn't ever think, how is it going to work out? How am I going to fund this thing? Whatever. They just said, I'm just going to start saying yes. And as a result of that, their life has been so enriched, and they've been able to see so many things and be able to go to so many places. And so, so your experience has really encouraged people, I know, who are listening, to not be afraid to say yes to things like that may not feel comfortable, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're living proof of that, right? So,
I survived.
Yeah, exactly. You survived, you're thriving. And so, so that's huge. That is so huge. So thank you for sharing that experience and that pearl, because I think it's something really important to talk about, right? Hey, it's Dr. G, and I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank you for listening to this episode. I'm so honored to have you here with me. Did you know that I can help you to get your own podcast started? With my podcasting launch course for professionals, I walk you through everything you need to know about starting a podcast. I'm with you every step of the way, from sign up to launching your show, with 5 episodes ready to go. There's a done for you version that's also available if you would just rather just do recordings and leave the behind the scenes work up to us, then that one is definitely for you. But either way, we've got your back here at Fearless Freedom with Dr. G. Oh, if you already have a show and you need production services, we have monthly plans available for you. So check out the links in the episode show notes for more information. Let's get back to the show. And then, so now I'm curious. So you went to film school. You got your money's worth out of it, I am sure, right? And then was the next step after that to return home and start a business, or what happened next?
So at that time, I had moved on by myself to New York, did the whole film school thing, and was also starting a new relationship with my now husband and co-founder.
Okay. Awesome.
Omar. And so while I was, figuring out, am I going to be a filmmaker? Is this what I want to do? I started taking some videography gigs in New York. He was also recently resigned as well from teaching and had started a consulting business, and following his passion as well as a business builder and business owner. And so we were kind of helping each other out. Like I would ask him for advice. I didn't know anything about how to set my rates, all of those things. And given just project managing my own clients, invoicing, all that stuff was fairly new to me. But he had a bit more experience as he'd side hustled in business during his teaching career. Okay. And as we were kind of helping each other out, I was giving advice, a little bit of input into what he was doing. He was helping me out. He had an idea for a business, which was the $100 MBA. And he approached me and said, this is what I'm thinking of doing. This is the idea that I have. I think you could lend your brand new filmmaking skills and videography skills to the job. And would you like to do this, with me? And I thought it sounded great. I chasing down clients, trying to get paid, getting underpaid for a huge amount of work. Like all of these were lessons, and it was a great experience. But I realized how hard it was to, get new clients, to get them to pay, to find the next client, all of that. And filmmaking is also very physical. You're carrying heavy equipment, you're going, around off subways, metros, all of that. So, I got a real insight into that world. And I thought, okay, maybe I don't want to make other people's movies. Maybe, this sounds like an idea of, let's do our own, let's create our own stuff, our own product, our own videos. And so that's what really appealed to me about his idea. And that's when we created the videos for the $100 MBA, which was an online training community teaching the fundamentals of business. And so Omar had all the content, the curriculum. He was on camera and I was behind the camera filming it and then creating the videos that went up onto the website. So that's where that transition happened. So it didn't last, I think it lasted maybe 9 months, about under a year before, I moved into then working with Omar full time.
Oh, I see. I was like, she said it didn't last, but then she said they're married. Oh, what's going on?
Oh, sorry. That's very good point. I should clarify and communicate that better. Our relationship lasted. The $100 MBA is still around as a podcast. But my filmmaking, my stint in filmmaking didn't last very long.
Got it. I was like, oh, did I miss something?
No. That's totally my bad.
That's
totally
good.
My bad.
Awesome. And then, so 10 years now, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you guys have been in business together. That's fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
That is fantastic. And so are there some new fears now that you're having to face with everything?
Oh.
I mean, because in different stages of the business, you have different things. Like you mentioned, at the very beginning, acquisition of clients, getting invoices correct, paid,
Mm-hmm.
et cetera, can be quite a challenge. Do you find that you're having some new challenges now, or?
Yeah. I mean, look, as a business evolves, as it grows, so many people liken a business to a human, right? It does go through its different stages and you're faced with all the different challenges from those first early acquisitions of customers, growth, hiring teammates, managing teammates, scaling the business, all of that. And then for me, as someone who didn't have a background in business, I didn't have a traditional MBA. I was very new to things and just learning by doing. And I'm such a big believer in just in time learning and just learning what you need to know to get you to the next step. And so there have been different challenges along the way. And one of those was for me always finding like, where can I add the most value in the business? What can I do that actually helps drive the business forward? In the beginning, it was, okay, video editing. Then when we launched the podcast, it was audio editing. Always kind of trying to find my place where I could help grow the business. And I think one of the areas you asked, like, is there anything that's challenging or fearful? There was management at one stage, but I feel like I've gotten better. Okay. Still learning, of course, still making mistakes, but still, better than I was, 5 years ago. And I would say now probably, the sales side of things is something that I've not been responsible for, quote, so to speak. Omar's very much more the face of the business, running the sales webinars, all of that. And so while I contribute to the operations and making sure that the team has everything they need, it's like, where can I probably step up in that role and contribute in that sense as well? So always a little bit of fear when it's something like, oh, I kind of don't do this. Everyone else on the team takes care of that, but maybe I should to help out and do something in that department as well. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I mean, it's very exciting to hear that, because a lot of times, as a serial entrepreneur myself, I understand this, but like a lot of times people, they'll start projects and businesses and, they don't always make it. Sometimes you have a couple of, fails, but if you fail forward and you continue, you will have that one that will sustain. So I'm so happy that you guys were able to pull that together and have something that sustained for a decade, which is amazing. And so now you have to tell us, how can people get in contact with you?
Well,
like hire you or something.
So, we've got a couple of places. If they're interested in business lessons, if they are building a business and they're, at any stage of that business, really, we've got over 2,000 podcast episodes at the $100 MBA show podcast. So so there's definitely a library and a wealth of, lessons there for people to dig into. I don't know if your listeners are already, have created businesses, or, they're trying to maybe build an audience. Webinars can be a way to start growing your audience and building that community around you. So WebinarNinja is our software. Nice. And on social, my favorite, I have a love-hate relationship with social media.
I think you're not alone in that one.
A lot of people do.
Yeah.
But I do like Instagram. I've always been a very visual person. Probably the film school thing had something to do with that. So I do like Instagram. And so I'm at Nicole Baldinu on Instagram. So if anyone wants to connect and, share like what they learned from this episode, looking forward to, sharing it with my community as well.
Awesome. And that is Baldinu. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
I'm pretty much the only Nicole Baldinu out there.
Just making sure, because that's no, it's a beautiful name. But I just was like, just didn't want anybody to like go and search and have a letter off or something and then not find you. So awesome. And then so how is everything set up now? So the people that go to the website, like for example, for the app is on like Apple and Google Play, or is there somewhere they have to go in order to actually get the WebinarNinja?
So WebinarNinja is a web app. It works natively on any device. You don't actually need to download an app. So it works on your phone, works on an iPad. So if you just go to webinarninja.com, they can, have a little explore there. And of course, podcasts are on any lots of apps now that are allowed to play a podcast. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. That's great. That is great. And then, so what else are you guys doing these days besides WebinarNinja and the educational piece?
The $100 MBA. So, the $100 MBA is pumping out episodes, Monday to Friday. So that's,
oh my gosh, Monday to Friday. How long are these episodes? Oh my gosh. Like I just think about once a week. Like, oh, that's a lot.
I know, right? No, we keep them around. So Omar's able to keep it around 10 to 15 minutes at the most. So they're short format, lesson based. Monday to Friday. With Webinar Ninja, we're very excited. We're currently working on another feature set that will allow our members and our users to run courses, live courses. So we know a lot of our members do a lot of live teaching, and so we're working on that and due to be in beta, releasing that later next month. So very, very excited about our courses offering there as well.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. That is great. Wow, Nicole, you guys have a lot going on. Didn't I tell you guys? I told you she had a lot going on. Gotta listen to me.
Charmaine knows what she's talking about.
Oh my gosh. And then so right now you're in Sydney though, right? So how is everything? Like, how's the weather and everything there?
So right now, as you can see, you're in a t-shirt and I'm all bundled up in a cardigan.
Yeah, you're in a sweater.
So at the opposite end of the world, we've just come out of our winter. It was a very cold winter too, but we've headed into spring now. Okay. So Sydney for the most part has quite beautiful climate, but we've had a lot of rain this year.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. You may have to lead some to California because they have a paucity of rain. They can't get any rain. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Awesome. You know, this has been such a good conversation. I have gleaned a lot from you, so thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. And super happy about the success of your company, because that's no small feat, right? Absolutely not.
Thank you.
And so that's awesome. And then I cannot believe you have so many podcast episodes. Like my mind is blown. Okay. Like I'm just like, that is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So definitely keep up the good work with that as well. Well, I guess Omar is the one doing it, right? So keep up the good work, Omar. So that's awesome. And so now we're at the part of the show where we do our tradition, which is fill in the blanks. So are you ready for fill in the blanks, Nicole? Are you ready
as ever? Yeah, let's do it.
Excellent. All right. So the first one is, if I am fearless, I will.
I'm fearless. I will be determined in my pursuit of what I'm trying to achieve, but I will remain open and humble. I do believe you can't take anything for granted.
Awesome. The next one is, to me, fearless freedom means.
Oh, fearless freedom means not being afraid to dream big and to stop playing small. Like just give it a go. Like, what's the worst that can happen? You tried, right? At least you tried and you learned it wasn't for you.
Oh my gosh, you're speaking to me. Like, you know, it's so crazy because, like, you know, you think you're like, oh yeah, you know, I have this big goal, whatever. And then you talk to your mentor, you talk to somebody else and they're like, why are you like aiming so low? Like, come on, you can push yourself a little more. Yeah. And so, no, that's good. That is good. It's good stuff. And then the last one is, my battle cry is,
I believe in taking big risks to have a big life. Take big risks to have a big life.
Yes. Love it. That's fantastic. That is
they
fantastic.
Work for you?
Yeah. No, that was beautiful. I love that. Love it. That is awesome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to be with us here at the Fearless Freedom Tribe. We really appreciate your insights and your sharing, because I know it's not easy to share your personal information, and I appreciate you sharing your story. We definitely love that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being able to talk to you. You're so easy to talk to, Charmaine, and you have a great podcast. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Fearless Freedom with Dr. G. Again, I'm Dr. G. And if you like this episode, be sure to subscribe so that you can get notified of when the next episode is going to be. And also, I'll catch you next time. Have a great one. Be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.